welcome back to another episode of the Rockbridge Farmstead podcast. We're so glad that you're here tonight. This is Greg.
And Marianne.
And we have a lot going on tonight. So this is our first podcast episode where we will be sitting down and talking with another homestead. It is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So before we get started with that, though, we're going to give you a couple homestead updates for us. So like we said, we are in Kentucky, and we kind of just got out of a really deep cold snap. So we're recording this. Warm. It's the February the 1st, actually. So it was about 60 degrees today, which was crazy.
Yeah, because the day before that, it was not that warm. It was 40 the day before, but several days before that, it was like 9 degrees.
Yeah. And then... yeah, we had like 3 weeks of just super cold weather, a lot of snow. And then I think we're supposed to get another snowstorm this week.
And we do get cold winters where we live. It's not, people think in the South you don't get any cold winters, but the part of Kentucky we're in does still get pretty cold in the wintertime.
Yeah, I would say right now is typically the coldest it's going to get.
Yeah, February is usually going to be pretty cold.
With that being said, we have been spending a lot of time inside.
Lots of planning and getting things ironed out for what we need to do in the spring, which will be here before you know it, and also I feel like goes by very quickly.
Yes. It's always like, oh, it's wintertime, we have all this time to prepare, and then before you know it, it's sunshine and beautiful, and you're outside working all the time.
Yeah, we like those days.
Yeah. So kind of what we're getting prepared for now, when we can get outside and work. I have been building a lot of stuff for the apiary expansion. So building boxes, building lids and bottom boards and things like that. I buy most of my boxes from a Mennonite here in Kentucky. They're cypress hives.
They mill all their own wood, too.
Yeah, they grow and mill all their own wood, which is pretty cool.
And it's really fun to visit, to go pick up all of your stuff. It's just cool to see their houses and their farms and have a big community there with other Mennonite people, and it seems like they each have their own little
jobs. Like you go by one house and they have all the chickens and the fowl and birds, and then the other house will have horses. All the cattle, and one house will have all the horses. So, and it's all on one property, but there are multiple houses. So it's a really neat place. The hive bodies that I get, like I said, they're cypress, and they're cheaper. Like I can't build them as cheap as what I can buy them. It is about a 3.5 hour trip though, so...
Well, you do build them. It's just in pieces.
Yeah, you just have to put them together. I assemble them. So we usually just go down there about once a year. This was our biggest year yet. I think I have 100 medium boxes and 40 nuke boxes. That was what we bought this year. I'm building all my tops and bottoms myself, so that's taking a lot of time. We're kind of in the final stretch, though.
Mostly
There's
the
a lot
tops
that
and
we
bottoms.
need to get done. And it's hard. The tops and bottoms need painted, and that's hard to do when it's that cold.
Yeah.
And we do have a shop, but it's not heated. And there's not really a good way to heat it because it's like 60 by 25 feet.
Yeah, it's a barn, so it's large.
With like 20-foot ceilings, and it's not insulated. So, it's a pole barn. It's metal, so there's not like breezes coming through, but it's cold.
It's nice to have a large space, but it is hard to heat in the wintertime.
So that's the big project that we're kind of working on now, is trying to get that ready, because as soon as spring hits, probably right around the 1st of March, we're going to start seeing drones in the air. Drones in the air means we can start raising queens.
Drone bees, by the way.
Yeah, drone bees.
We're not being spied on.
Yeah. Raising queens means that's when you can start expanding, doing your splits. We promise that this isn't going to be a beekeeping podcast.
It's hard not to talk about, though.
It's what we do, so there is going to be a lot of beekeeping stuff on here.
Maybe you'll learn some things, or we can learn from you. Who knows?
Also, if you have any beekeeping questions, feel free to reach out. You can send any kind of question to rockbridgefarmstead@gmail.com. Or find us on Instagram. We're pretty active there.
Yeah, Instagram. Message us on Instagram. That's probably the best place, I would say.
Yep. So the other thing that we're kind of working on is it is seed time.
Yeah, it's about time to start certain things. The cold weather crops a lot of things I do direct sow, so I'm not going to be worrying too much about like peas and radishes and all that. I'll just plant those directly in the ground when it gets a little bit warmer. But I will be starting seeds for like tomatoes and all those kinds of things. I have to get a shelf, so we'll probably get like a metal rack that we use those for beekeeping too, that has wheels, so it's multi-purpose. You can use it for a lot of different things. So once we're done with seeds, then we can use it in the barn for beekeeping stuff.
Yeah, last year we just tried to use like one of the 8-foot folding tables. But
it
you
just
can't
takes
really,
up too much
yeah,
room.
It takes up a lot of room, and you can't get a lot on there.
Yeah.
And we do use grow lights too, so it kind of, your light has to cover a larger area.
Yeah.
So we think the shelf, we've seen several people do it like that. So we think
I
that's probably
going
to be our best option.
Yep. So I have to go through all my seeds and pick out what I need to get planted sooner than later. And I'm going to get some vermiculite and perlite and some peat moss and make my own starter soil for the seeds. So that's exciting. I've never done that before, but I've researched it for years. I just haven't actually done it. But I figure the soil will be better for the plants to get the nutrients and moisture levels that they need. That's exciting. It's always fun to see the seeds sprout, and the kids love that. They love participating in that and watching them every day and watering them. And so that'll be fun. I'm sure you'll see some of that on our Instagram page as well as we get started doing that.
Another really cool, exciting thing, we had our first duck egg.
Oh, yeah.
So we never intended on getting ducks. No. This will be our funny story for the episode. So we never really intended on getting sheep either. So one day I was cruising along on the Facebook Kentucky Livestock or something like that.
Just because, why not, right?
Yeah, because I always do. Why not? Anyway, this lady, she had 2 sheep that the mother had died during birth.
So sad.
So she was bottle feeding them. And she couldn't do that because she has a job and it took too much time. Well, we have jobs too, but...
You just knew your wife was home, so you felt pity on these sheep and said, oh, well, Mary Ann can feed them while I'm at work.
Exactly. So we drove 2 hours to go pick up these sheep. And they're St. Croix.
Yep, St. Croix.
St. Croix hair sheep. And they are awesome. While we were there, they were kind of showing us their farm.
They were super nice.
All their animals and whatnot. And I saw these just crazy looking ducks. Like everywhere. Like
yeah,
all
they
these
had
ducks.
A lot of ducks and chickens.
And when we pulled in, like in the storm drain, there was like a mama and like 5 babies.
I forgot about that.
I had just in passing, I was like, these are some really cool ducks. Like, I've kind of wanted ducks. I've always heard they're kind of messy. Mary Ann never wanted ducks.
Yeah, because they're messy.
So
we have enough messes around here.
So the guy was like, yeah, they just kind of run wild, and they just keep repopulating. And he was like, the hawks get them, and, it is what it is. So we're talking to his wife. She's kind of giving us some more information about the sheep. And this guy comes out with a net, and he's like, follow me. I'm like, okay. So I follow him. And he goes and scoops up 5 ducks. And he was
they're little ducklings. So cute.
They're probably more safe with you than they're going to be here.
Yeah, there's a better chance for them.
Go ahead and take them. So we brought home 2 sheep and 5 ducks in the back of our SUV. Yeah, and the ducks were in a shoebox. They were tiny. They were the size that you would get them at like Tractor Supply. That's how we got our ducks. And we got them, I think, back in May.
Yeah, it was not quite a year ago, yeah. It was in
April.
The spring. I think it was April.
So we've yet to get a duck egg from them. And to be honest, we don't even know if we have male and females.
Yeah, we
obviously have one female.
We didn't really investigate that too much yet because we just haven't worried about it. And we figured we would have, probably the odds would have at least 1 male and 1 female out of 5.
Yeah. We think for sure we have 2 males because they are kind of
bigger,
fatter.
And I read somewhere that they hiss.
A lot.
Yeah, they'll like make these weird sounds. And one of them definitely makes those hissing noises.
Yeah, we got our first duck egg, so we're pretty excited about that.
I've heard they're good for baking. Lots of people have said they're great for baking, so maybe I'll make something I'm not the biggest baker, but I will maybe make something good with a duck egg. If you have any recipes that you use for your duck eggs, you can also message us and send them to us. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we're excited about that. We really, really like the ducks. Way more than I thought we were going to.
Yeah, I like them too. Yeah.
Like, they're fun to watch. They don't really do much. Probably the biggest hassle is keeping, like, water for them to play in. We also have 2 geese, and they're splash all the water out of our kiddie pool.
And they're loud.
Yeah, and they're way dirtier, but I still like them too. They're fun.
I like them more than I thought I would. I was very hesitant about getting geese because I once got chased by a wild goose, and that thing, I thought it was going to kill me, for real.
Yeah, but that was like in the city of Detroit, like
No,
people throwing rocks at them all the time. Of course those goose are gangster.
Okay. Yeah, but I've turned my heart around for these geese, although one of them is a little bit more crazy than the other. And I think that one's male. I think we have a male and a female. And I think the male is just more of the protector. I've heard that the males tend to keep their heads up, and the females keep their heads down low. So he likes to do all the talking.
Yeah, and they both have like the big bump.
The bump, yeah.
On and they're about the same size. So I don't really think that's a fair comparison. So we don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. Those were another animal that Marianne didn't really know about until we went to go pick it up.
This is a pattern. If you don't know this about us, Greg tends to collect animals. It just kind of happens somehow magically.
But they're all awesome.
Some of them have been more awesome than others.
That's our little farm update. It is, like I said, it's cold, so there's not a whole lot.
There's a lot in the plans, but not a lot currently happening. But it'll start ramping up in the next few weeks. We're really gonna probably start doing a lot more. And this podcast was one of the big things that we wanted to work on. So being inside working on this works out well.
Yep. So tonight we are going to interview a homestead that's in the suburbs of Cincinnati. Tulip Acres Homestead. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, we have known Amy and Alex for quite a long time.
I have. I mean, Amy and I grew up together. So we are both from...
we've been married for 13 years.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Well, you knew her before then, too. You've known her for a long time.
We've known them for a while. They have had some issues with legal problems on their homestead. So we will kind of hear about that. Maybe give you guys some hope if anyone is going through kind of a similar situation. All right, tonight we're here with Amy Tulip of Tulip Acres. She has a small suburban homestead outside the suburbs of Cincinnati.
That's right.
So thank you so much for being our first guest. This is very exciting. Amy and I have known each other our entire lives. We always say that we don't remember not knowing each other. It's been a long time.
Yeah, we're just friends by marriage. That's it.
Yeah, you and Alex are just by association. No.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to answer all your questions.
All right. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about how you got started? What brought you guys to have a homestead?
Yeah, I mean, probably not the person you'd expect to have a homestead. I was raised in the city of Detroit, and Marianne and I mean, we would spend lots and lots of time outside. But Marianne, I don't even know if your mom did much gardening.
She usually had a small garden, but nothing big.
Yeah, same with my mom. Usually like tomatoes and maybe some few other things, but it's nothing that I ever tried to get involved in. I didn't want to go out and garden. I didn't want to dig holes. I didn't want to eat what came from the garden. Just wasn't what I wanted to do. But I spent my summers growing up in a rural area of Detroit. And that was like 200 acres of woods at a camp with horses and goats and chickens and woods that we could walk through. And that time always spoke a lot to me. Like I loved being out in the country. I loved being out in nature. So I think it was just a matter of time before it was something that I decided to do too. I married Alex, and he grew up in the country, and he did some gardening, and he was really into like alternative ways of living, like earthships, sustainable homes, alternative energy.
Yeah, he knows a lot. He knows a lot of that kind of stuff. It's very interesting to talk to him about the geodomes and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And he even I think when we were dating, he had made the structure for a geodome greenhouse and stuff. He didn't have plastic on it. And so I ended up with this guy who always wanted to talk about gardening. I don't think I had a cherry tomato until Alex brought in this container from his garden. He was like, eat one. I don't think I had a cherry tomato ever before then. And I was like, oh, these are actually tasty. So he's the one I ended up marrying. And so the whole time we were married, we talked about, we would love to have more land. We'd want to have chickens and a big garden. And he always wanted greenhouses. So we just kind of talked about it. And when we got our first house, Alex made a garden and I didn't help with it a single bit. I didn't water it. I didn't plant anything. I don't know if I ate anything from it. I don't know if it grew anything. And that's kind of where I came in. He had the big vision and I had the details. I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do a garden, let's see when these are actually supposed to be planted. And let's see, just kind of all the details of gardening.
Making it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I excel. Making a plan, following the plan.
Yeah, you are really good at that.
All of that. Yeah. So in Minnesota, we lived in Minnesota for a couple of years. He had a garden. I think one of the years I bought strawberry plants and I was so excited to get strawberries. But the following summer we moved, or the following year we moved. So I never had any of those strawberries. And we moved to 2 acres outside of Cincinnati, with the hopes of being able to have chickens and a huge garden. We built a greenhouse, a hoop house, pretty much right away.
Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Yeah, and Alex just did it all basically from his own plans.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really nice greenhouse.
Yeah, we didn't use it at all this winter.
I mean, you have a few other things going on, so,
Yeah, well, and then the reason we got into gardening, we moved here in 2020. Yeah, January of 2020.
At the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, onto our 2 acres. And that's when the pandemic started. And we had already at that point been kind of set on getting chickens, even though our township didn't allow them. So we were kind of trying to figure out what to do to petition the township to allow backyard chickens.
Rebel with a cause.
That's right. And we ended up being able to petition the township, and they were allowed that following fall. So we had got that when we knew that the township was going to allow them. We got 6 chickens in July before that fall. But it was really the pandemic, we couldn't go anywhere. Things were locked down. We don't trust the food source. The food, what's it called?
The food system.
Yeah. We're already eating organic and we're trying to eat locally raised and
not much more local than your own backyard.
No, there's not, to go outside and get your breakfast, right? So he kind of started a garden, I think, in 2020, and then we did a greenhouse, and then we got chickens, and then the following spring, this past spring, 2021, is when I was gung-ho, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it. Here's our garden plot, here's the manure, here's the compost, here's the topsoil. We need all of it because we're on clay soil. And then I was like, and here's the timeline. In February, we start this. In March, we start this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the biggest garden we've ever had. And I was able to can lots and lots of tomato sauce, lots and lots of salsa, pickles, green beans, even potatoes and carrots, different kinds of jellies from ground cherries. And I feel like there was some.
You did a pawpaw. You gave us some of the pawpaw.
So was this your first time canning too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then we got sheep. So and now we have red. So it's the absolute first time of us doing any of this stuff. And I've got this neighbor who drives down the road and she always stops to talk. And she's like, so where did you learn all this from? And I grew up in Detroit. And she's like, no way. Cause she grew up in a suburb of Detroit.
Oh,
and
that's
she's like,
cool.
So who taught you? I was like, YouTube. And really last spring, I just spent hours watching people's channels and learning from people. And that's the long story of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, that's great.
Is there any projects in particular you're working on right now?
Oh man, there's always projects. Oh yeah, we have bees too, but that failed miserably this year.
Hey, you can always try again.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
we know some people, so it's okay.
You know some bee people.
Yeah.
Projects, well, it's the end of January, so planning out the garden for this spring is I just ordered a bunch of seeds. I'm moving the chickens, so we have our chickens in a mobile coop with electric netting so that we can move where they're fenced in at. So I need to move them onto the old garden plot from last year. I've had them on the new spaces that I wanted to expand the garden into. So that's one project happening right now.
Nice. Put those animals to work.
That's right. Yeah. And then, I mean, we've got lambs. We've got baby lambs on the ground. So really learning how to manage our pasture, how to manage our backyard grass.
Your sheep population grew, like doubled.
Yeah, in the last 3 weeks, we went from 3 sheep to 7 sheep. But learning how to like manage the pasture, like what kinds of seeds do we need to be throwing down? What kind of grasses do we need to be growing to really give the best nutrition to our grass-fed sheep, our grass-fed meat. So that's coming up soon because I'm going to try some frost seeding on our pasture and see if that works. And then we have meat rabbits now. So learning how to get those breeding and how to harvest the meat and all that stuff, I think are some of the biggest projects right now.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a lot on your plate.
Yes. And we're tapping maple trees right now.
Oh, that's really cool. That's something I've always wanted to try. We don't have maples here. We have black walnut, which I've heard that you can do, and it's kind of a nuttier taste.
Somebody said that it's more like a butterscotchy taste, I guess.
I've only heard good things about black walnut syrup. So you guys should give it a try, especially if you have any tapping supplies. This next week looks like it's going to be a good one.
No, I don't yet. I didn't buy the spiles, and I feel like it's one of those things that I thought about committing to, and then I was like,
Yeah, and all our black walnut trees are actually in the goat pasture, and those little ornery guys.
Yeah, that's true too.
So we need to figure something else out if that's what we're going to do.
Maybe we could put them up higher. I don't know how that'll work. Well, anyway.
And then we've got this huge satellite dish in our woods that we would love to turn into like the bottom of a pond, like add a liner to it and make it into a pond. So that's one of Alex's big projects.
Are you guys going to do like aquaponics or just a pond, or?
Well, with that satellite dish, it's huge, but it's not like deep.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a big pond. I think that would be like more of a aesthetic pond near like the garden space, because we've all talked about how digging a pond for a water source is a really good idea. So like that kind of a water source pond would be larger and somewhere else, I think.
Okay.
A good way to make use of that old satellite dish that you don't need.
Isn't that the whole thing with homesteading? I mean, you just recycle everything you can recycle.
Yep.
Yeah.
You try to make it look nice.
You guys have been kind of on the newer side of this. You haven't had the several years to accumulate all the junk. So it's one thing they don't tell you about homesteading is all the junk piles that you have everywhere. But it's not really junk. It's really useful stuff.
You don't want to get rid of it.
Our garage is kind of full of all sorts of stuff at the moment. But yeah, we could always use more building materials to pile up somewhere.
Are you a homesteader looking for a little bit more information on maybe how to butcher a pig, maybe how to grow a garden, start seeds? Well, Abundance Plus might be for you. To learn more, there's a link in our show notes. Once you're there, you can use coupon code ROCKBRIDGE10 to save 10% off your first purchase. We'll go ahead and ask this just because we know you kind of personally. You are coming up with some kind of oppositions to your homestead. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Are we ever? Yes. So like I said, we didn't get chickens until we knew that the township was going to allow chickens, right? And we didn't get sheep until we thought that it was legally correct for us to add to our homestead. So in January of 2021, January or February, we hired a title examiner to do a title search of our property, because our township says that unless we have 5 acres, we can't have farm animals. But there's an Ohio state law that says if your house was put together in such a way, then the township has no jurisdiction over like the agricultural use of your property. So we hired this attorney to do the title search, and it came back saying, hey, your house was put together in this way, and the Ohio state law is going to trump the township jurisdiction on your property. So you can pursue agriculture on your land. And we're like, great, that's fantastic. But when will we ever get sheep? Like, that seems like such a huge thing to add. But there's a local sheep farmer who has grass-fed Katahdins, which is the breed of sheep that we raise, that was kind of selling off all of his breeding stock because he was going to move more towards grass-fed beef, grass-fed cows. And so I think in June, I realized that he was selling them. And that's the only local grass-fed Katahdin hair sheep person that I know. So I was like, Alex, we have to get these sheep. And it was the day after we mowed our 2-acre property. So our grass was nice and low and we had no fencing. And so we woke up Sunday morning and Alex was like, okay, yeah, let's get the sheep. And I was like, perfect. We're going to get 2 rams to eat and a ewe. And let's go get fencing from Tractor Supply right now. And we went to Tractor Supply. We got fencing, we got T-posts, we got a T-post pounder, and we literally just went to work like all day long. We were pounding in posts and connecting the fence. And I think that evening around like 6 or 7 o'clock, we showed up at his farm and picked out some sheep and loaded them into our Ford Escape tiny SUV.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing pictures.
I remember seeing pictures of that.
Yeah, with the kids in their car seats.
One car seat in my car, and then the other car seat in Alex's like 4-seat sedan, or 5-seat sedan. Because we had to bring both cars so that we could both
fit everything
with children. Yeah, because we don't, the children, our kids come along, our 2 little boys. Yeah. And I think we had finished one part, like 150-foot by 50-foot paddock, just in time to go pick up the sheep and bring them.
Hey, that's all you needed.
Home. And I think we got home like around 9 o'clock. It was really late. The boys were just done with it. They had been neglected all day long. No one was paying attention to this 3-year-old and 1-year-old all day long. They were over it, but we were like so happy to get our sheep. So we didn't do that until we knew that we could legally do this on our property.
You did your due diligence by doing all of that and hiring the attorney and seeking that out.
But we have one neighbor out of, there's subdivisions right behind our house, and the people that live in the subdivision behind our house, they love it. And the person across the street, they love it. And there's 4 people that live down a private drive that borders our property. So, if you're on a private drive, first of all, you're probably paying more for your house. So these are like, they're more wealthy neighbors, right? They love it. They all love it. But there's this one guy that lives next door to us, and he does not like it. So he sent a complaint to the township, and then the township came to our house, and I was like, hey, this is fine. Like you can check into this complaint because here's this letter from our attorney that says we can do this. Let me send it to you. And that was back in like probably July, because it didn't take too long after getting our sheep that our neighbor made a complaint. And then we didn't hear anything back. So we had given this letter from our attorney to the township. We didn't hear anything back. And I was like, great, like they know that they can't come against us. But then we got these 2 little goats, these 2 little pygmy goats, we have this drainage ditch. It's kind of like a creek that goes through our backyard to clean up around there because we were keeping our sheep fenced in other places. And we forgot that the fence we built went over the drainage ditch, over the creek, and the goats were down in the creek eating all the vegetation and went under the fence into our neighbor's yard. And so our neighbor came out and yelled at Alex and was like, take care of this. Pointing to
he should have been paying you to let the goats eat the weeds in his yard.
He doesn't have any fancy plants or anything. So anyway, he made sure to check in with the township multiple times after that. And now we're in this back and forth where the township attorney says that our land wasn't created in the way that would exempt their jurisdiction, but our attorney says it was. And neither attorney actually has an answer. So our previous hearing was scheduled for December and it got pushed back, and it's actually happening a week from tomorrow. And it sounds like neither attorney really has an answer still about who's right and who's wrong. So that's just the tricky spot we're in right now. Like, yeah, I'm trying in my head to get ready for planting our spring garden and everything. And there's tons of things we want to do to expand what we're already doing. But I guess we need to wait a week to really see what the outcome of this township hearing is going to be, because I love the sheep. And I think having our own grass-fed meat source is, first, it's super sustainable. And
that's really the frustrating part, because we want to live a lifestyle where we're not dependent on the grocery store, and we don't really trust the food sources.
Exactly.
And they're having all these food shortages. So we're just like, hey, let's make our own food. And then they're like, no, you can't.
You can't do that. I mean, we can't have more than Alex. Alex has joined us on the podcast here.
Hey, Alex.
Hi.
We can't have more than 6 chickens. So right now we have 8. And that's like all we're allowed to have. We're only allowed to have 6 chickens, and we can have up to 2 beehives, and that's it. But we have 2 acres, and I still believe that our land was made in the way that Ohio state law makes us eligible to use our 2 acres to grow food, produce, and meat for ourselves, you know?
It's just crazy that you have to fight for your own property to be able to do what you want to do with it. Like that is just mind blowing.
I'm not in an HOA, you know, like we didn't move into a place that we were like, we're going to a place that has rules, you know, like we didn't move into an HOA. We didn't move into a subdivision.
Right.
And I mean, we've been to your place before. Like, it's not in a downtown area. Like, it's not in the middle of the city whatsoever.
The houses are far apart from each other. And it's not uncommon for the people on our street to have an acre of land each. And there's a lot you can do on 1 acre. There's a ton you can do.
But our neighbor just wants it to be mowed. He just wants it to be mowed. We don't want to mow it. You know, like we chose to get nature's lawnmower.
Yeah. And then have meat.
Lawnmower turned grass into meat for us, right? And, you know, build us fertilizer. You know, right now we have our on deep bedding for the winter, and we're going to take all that deep bedding and put it on the garden. You know, it's just so sustainable. It's so sustainable, so low input. And this is how everybody should have the ability to live if they want to.
Yeah, we agree.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And if the township says we can't, we will be moving some sheep and chickens over to your house.
That's okay. They can live here for a little while.
In my SUV.
Well, we are hoping and praying that works out for you guys.
Yeah, we are.
That's not the outcome that you get, because that would be pretty crummy.
Just devastating, really. Because like, where do we go from there? You know, like.
Yeah, that changes everything.
Yeah.
But if that does happen, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, then I fully believe that you guys will make that next thing happen and make it good. So either way, I think it's a win-win situation. I know it doesn't seem like it probably.
I love your optimism, Marianne. You're optimist.
That's true.
But that's how Alex is too.
Yeah.
So what would you say? So you guys are still kind of in the very beginning stages. You're about 2 years in.
Yeah.
What's your big dream? I mean, if you could look, say, 10 years down the road, this is where I want to be. This is what I would want to be doing.
And Alex, feel free to chime in too if you want to talk.
I can share mine first. You need a time to think, don't you?
No, I don't.
Oh, you got it.
All of the above. Actually, the dream is 100 acres with orchards and sheep, grass runway for airplanes, whole business there. No, what's your vision for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both on board with like as much land as we can possibly have. I want to be able to make enough food on our property for the year, right? Like I want to be able to truly be self-sufficient in feeding my family.
Have your own grocery store.
Do I mean wheat? Probably not. Like I'll probably still want to buy flour because my mom made me grind flour.
Yeah, I participated in that too.
With little hand grinder, and maybe that's why I never wanted to get into her gardening stuff, because it was, I mean, who does that? Who does that when you can go get flour? for your family of 9 people. But my big dream, yeah, just being able to grow absolutely everything that we would need to live off of for the year. And then in that, kind of like bringing other people into that. Like for me, I'm thinking about this past week, like, do I want to turn my homestead into a business? Like, what part of my homestead would I be passionate about turning into a business?
Yeah.
And right now the answer is like none of it. Like, I just want to be able to feed my family and have extra for people in need, you know, and for family.
Just not the neighbor next door. He doesn't get anything.
He needs some of Alex's homegrown cherry tomatoes to turn him around.
That's right. That's what turned me around. But I think like having rental properties like Airbnbs or, you know, just like small rental properties on our property as a way to invite people in to see the lifestyle and
farm
to see
experience.
Yeah. If they're interested in learning about it, or if they just want a place to stay for the weekend, like it doesn't really matter. But offering that hands-on learning experience, because that's something I've heard about in the past. Like we had friends in Minnesota that would like go to a farm and help work it. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you find people that tell you to come to their farm and help learn, you know? So that's just something I would be interested in the long run.
And you are a teacher. So, I mean, you have that gift, I think, of being able to teach people. And I think you're really good at that. You're gifted at teaching.
Even one of the neighbors behind us, he's got 2 little girls. He was over with his girls one day and the girls were just asking thousands and thousands of questions. And he was like, this would be a really good educational farm. I was like, yeah, it would be.
It is.
It is, you know, and that's stuff that we're teaching our kids daily. Anyhow, we have our kids with us out in the garden, out with the sheep, out with the bees, you know, you guys know your kids are always with you and they're learning. And like today, my 4-year-old decided he was going to go water the plants in the house. And he saw that his apple seeds that he planted like a week or 2 ago from his apple were growing. And he was like, my apple tree. And then I was like, well, what's this over here? Isn't this your lemon tree that you planted this past spring? And he's like, yeah. And, you know, like him just taking that as a 4-year-old, taking the gumption to be like, hey, this is a seed in my hand. I'm going to go plant it because I want to eat more of this food. You know, like that's amazing.
It is. It's so amazing. Like and I guess for us, like we do that kind of stuff every day with our kids, just like you. And we kind of take that for granted. Like we don't think that other people don't have that experience or don't understand that.
Yeah. And it's even easy to remember that I didn't have that. You know, like I could touch my neighbors' houses from my house growing up. You know, I fell asleep to the sound of sirens every night. Like there was no grass in our backyard, you know, so like it's easy for me to forget that. But I think that's kind of where the passion comes from, that I want other people to see it and I want to be able to teach others, because it's not that hard. Like it's just not that hard.
Well, and it's a basic survival skill. Growing your own food is something that everyone should know how to do, in my opinion. I think food is wonderful and we all need it. So you should know how to grow it.
Yeah. And I think even too, like just knowing that skills that people used to know are disappearing, you know, like that not hearing, like I have to scour the internet to find information that I need. Right. Like, and luckily right now on YouTube, there's just a host of resources that I can go to because they're already living that life with those skills that had been lost. You know, like they didn't grow up farmers, or their parents weren't farmers, but maybe their grandparents were, and they're bringing back all those skills that have kind of just been forgotten.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt. I was thinking about that when we had our pigs, because we got to the point where they needed to be butchered, but I don't know how to butcher them. And no one that I know knows how to butcher. But I grew up hearing stories about my great grandpa and my grandpa. They butchered pigs all the time. Like I have their old hickory knives up in our kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Those were the pig butchering knives. Like,
so one day we'll butcher a pig with those old hickory knives.
Yeah. One day we will do it. Like my uncle, like he said he probably could still remember how to do it, but it's just a lot of work.
Yeah. Like even my dad, like his aunt had a huge farm, like 100 acres. in Florida or something like that. And she was going to give it to him. Anyway, so he remembers like chickens being butchered and guard geese on the farm and how scary the geese were, and like the cows coming up to you because they're cows. They're friendly. But she found some scammer came by and like she paid for something. How you hear these stories of like old time peddlers, right? Like coming to people's houses and they pay for something and they never got whatever it was that they paid for. Like the person basically goes away and never comes back. So that happened to her farm. So my dad never ended up getting any land
knew that.
Yeah, I think I found that out like a couple months ago because he was going to be a cow farmer. And that's another part of my dream is to have dairy sheep, to have dairy cows, just all of it. Make our own cheese, our own milk, just all of it. But yeah, those skills, our grandparents, our great grandparents knew them, and now was the perfect time for us to learn them.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're bringing them back.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Freedom. I mean, my grandparents were the same. It was my great grandparents had, I think, probably over 100 acres and had, hundreds of sheep, maybe even thousands.
Oh, wow.
They had a sheep call, right? Your dad would always about the sheep call.
You'd say, good day, good day, good day. And all the sheep would come running to the shepherd's voice. And
that's cool.
Yeah, but like my neighbor, when she's like, so how'd you learn to take care of sheep? I was like, we never knew. She was like, I wouldn't even know how to, because Daniel, my 4-year-old was there and he was picking up a chicken. She's like, I wouldn't even know how to do that. I was like, I didn't either. I had to Google it. How do you pick up a chicken? Like that's
just
how
reach down and grab it. That's all you got to do.
Well, it's not that easy.
I didn't know. There's a technique to putting your hand on its back and it squats and it won't move. And
now you know. And now he knows.
Catch them by their feet and their feathers.
All right. I think that'll wrap it up for tonight. But before we go, we want to close every episode with a little section called Homestead Wisdom. And I just want to ask you, is there anything that you wish that you would have known before you got started or before you started a project?
Yeah, I have one. Do you have an idea?
Go for it.
So for me, picking breeding stock for the sheep has been a big deal and has kind of shown its head in our failures a little bit. So we picked the best that we knew of. We picked the best breeding stock for our sheep that we knew of. But I did not know a single question to ask this farmer. And he's a truthful guy. He's not going to lie about anything. He's actually a really good guy. So if I would have had the questions in my head, I would have had good answers. But I didn't know anything. I just knew that the hoofs needed to look good and the udders, I just wanted to make sure that our ewe had already been a mother. So he was able to tell me that. And I don't think I had any other question besides that. But we got another ewe and she turned out being CL positive, which is cautious lymphadenitis or something like that. And it's kind of contagious and she gets abscesses from it, or at least she's had one. But it can be passed on through the flock. I had no idea to ask about the history of his flock. And I later found out that he had dealt with that a few years prior, but hadn't seen it in his flock for a while. But then other things like how parasite resistant are these sheep? Have you ever had them tested? Are they vaccinated against anything? Yeah, just questions like that. And obviously that's not even a lot of questions. I'm still learning, but looking at videos has taught me when you're looking for a good breeding ewe, she needs to be long so that she's got all this room to
carry the babies.
Yeah, to carry the babies. And so we've got one short ewe and we've got a longer one. And then I already knew that they had both lambed. I don't know if I knew that they had both thrown twins because the one ewe she'll be 2 years old this year. So I don't know what her first lambs were. But yeah, just kind of looking at different parts of the sheep. Are they deeper than they are wide was part of it as well. So anyway, I've learned a lot more things to look for the next time we look into breeding stock, like picking a ram or something like that. And it's a costly mistake. We've had to treat the CL and we've had a ewe with abscesses in her udder that we don't know what they're there for. We don't know why they're there. We don't know what they are. And so now I'm bottle feeding some lambs tonight because I don't think that they're getting any milk out of her because of those abscesses. So yeah, that's a costly mistake those are costly mistakes because your breeder sheep are going to cost lots of money, and you want them to do their job, right? Especially a meat sheep. You want them to produce lambs that are fast growing,
healthy, and yeah,
so that you can breed in the future if you need to, but also just so that you get your meat with less input, right? Like less time on pasture or less hay. They're being overwintered. So yeah, I knew nothing about sheep, and I still know very little, but I know a little bit more than I did before.
Yeah. And that's really good information. We've never really paid a whole lot of attention to like the breed and the genetics of our animals. Like everything on our farm is kind of mutts except for Moses. But we were just watching actually on Abundance Plus, Justin Rhodes was talking about his sheep and how he wanted the very particular kind of sheep, and they were very high dollar, and he had to travel far to get them because of what he was looking for. So,
well, and because his first sheep were complete failures, like they all ended up with parasite problems, right? Because he didn't research his breeders enough the first round. And so, he ended up realizing that mistake.
We all have those hard lessons, really.
Even Justin Rhodes.
Everyone.
And we get to learn from his mistakes, which I love. But Tess from the Grass-Fed Homestead, or at least she's interviewed on the Grass-Fed Homestead a lot, she has really good videos about how to pick breeding stock, how to feed them for fertility, like just absolutely value-packed videos on all those things. And I didn't see those videos until like last month. so I've learned a lot. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So if people wanted to follow the journey of the Tulip Acre Homestead, how would they be able to find you? Where are you most active?
You can find us on Instagram at Tulip Acres. And that is where we document all of the little and big things going on in our Tulip Acres urban homestead.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It was really great to have Amy and Alex from Tulip Acres, and we're really glad for the conversation that we had and all the information and knowledge that they shared with us.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to try to have them back on maybe in a couple weeks, maybe just a short episode kind of to follow up to see how the hearing went for their property. You know, that's a tough situation to be in, and it's not really a situation I feel personally that any of us should be in.
Yeah, I agree.
We want to be free and do what we want
that we want
on our property, you know. Food freedom, self-freedom, that's what we're all about.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and we hope you like this episode.
All right, till next time.
Thanks so much for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind subscribing and giving us a rating so that other people can find our podcast, that would be wonderful. Also, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, our website, rockbridgefarmstead.com, or find our Etsy shop under Rockbridge Farmstead.